The only concept that you really need to understand to follow the contents of this explanation is that in an internal combustion engine, air enters, explodes using the assistance of some sort of fuel, and then is exhausted. An engine that is set up in this manner is known as a naturally aspirated engine. Aspirated breathing works just fine. A lot of cars on the road are set up in such a manner. Even some high-end sports cars, even some race cars. But if you want to create more power, we need to force more air into the engine, which brings us to forced air induction. Atmospheric pressure is about 14.5 psi. Anything over that is considered boost, measured in psi, or whatever. The first form of forced air induction that I want to bring up is ram air. Now, many years ago, engineers discovered that if they put scoops on the front of the car somewhere, the forward motion of the car will help force more air into the engine. And this works, but usually not until about 40 miles an hour. 40 miles an hour is the agreed upon speed at which aerodynamics affect the performance of your vehicle. And in a race situation, if you're not the first one to 40 miles an hour, you're probably going to lose, depending on the length of the race and what kind of race, but there are better systems for forcing more air into the engine. Which brings us to supercharging. Supercharging is very popular. Many modern manufacturers still use superchargers. They can create a lot of boost. They sound great. Now what a supercharger is an air compressor that is driven by the engine. They can either be in like a turbine style or a impeller screw situation that sits on top of the engine. This is usually preferred. The problem is there's a parasitic loss involved because you're powering a big system of gears and fans, and that it takes energy to make all that happen. Usually the power gains offset the losses, but there's benefits to it. It's cool. People like it. There's also electric supercharging, which in the past, if you were to fit a electric supercharger to your vehicle, you would be laughed at. It's considered a scam, a joke. But now the cars have a lot more battery power available since there's a lot more electronics these days. It's possible to actually create usable boost with an electric motor on a turbine or whatever. It works. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of it in years to come. Some manufacturers are starting to do it already. Kits are available on eBay. But that leaves all the exhaust gases to just vent usable heat off into the exhaust system, out the tailpipe, to be vented off through the radiator. But if we harness that energy, we can create more boost. That's where turbochargers come in. Now, turbines are, engines that move air to create power. Helicopters use them, airplanes. Even grid power is generated using turbine generators. Now, in a car, they're smaller and they're more simple. Basically, you just have a fan that uses exhaust gases to make it spin, and those exhaust gases are vented out the back, and then that's connected to another fan that pulls air in and then compresses it and puts it into the engine. This is turbocharging. A lot of boost can be created with turbocharging, which is why it's necessary to fit pressure relief valves to make sure that you don't blow your engine up. These are called wastegates and blow-off valves. Necessary complication, but you obviously don't want to blow your engine up, so they are in there for your safety. There is a downside to turbocharging in that it takes a little while for the engine to actually build the pressure that can build the pressure, and that's known as turbo lag. You can use more turbochargers to help mitigate this. Twin turbocharging is very popular in high-end cars. I can even use one small turbocharger on the exhaust side and one on the intake side and use a separate channel of air through them. This is compound turbocharging, and it helps mitigate that. And some cars even use 3 or 4 turbochargers. Bugattis use 4, and you know, it's a lot of piping, but you know, it creates big power. Anytime you're compressing air, you're going to create heat. So it is also necessary to use something called an intercooler. In a supercharger or a turbocharger, intercoolers help make the air more dense. Cooler air is more dense, you get more air molecules in there, and you got more, a higher compression ratio available. There's air-to-air intercoolers, which use air to cool the air, and there's air-to-water intercoolers, which use water to cool the air. Both have their upsides and downsides, but they're necessary. Even cars there's some cars that use the actual AC system in your car to help cool the air through the intercooler. That's kind of cool, but kind of rare, but it works. And I think that about covers it. I hope you'd enjoyed this Dicksplanation. I'm Dick. Thanks for watching.